Hi everyone, my name is Stefan Geyser and I'm responsible for the academic portfolio of the AKTUA committee for 2020. And welcome to our career talk. We hope you will find it interesting and that we will all learn something from our accomplished guest joining me on Zoom from his office in Stellenbosch. Welcome to our guest today, Mr. Willem Roos. Mr. Roos is one of the founders and former CEO of Outsurance. He is currently the CEO of the mobile data operator RAIN. He is also a Tux actuarial science alumnus and also one of the most well-known actuaries in SA. And you can say he is actuarial royalty. Welcome, Mr. Roos, and thank you very much for joining us and investing your time on this Youth Day to educate us and give us some insight into the world of an actuary. It is a great honor to have you as our guest today.
Only a pleasure, Stefan. Thanks for inviting me.
It's a pleasure having you. We will present Mr. Roos with some questions, and if there is still time in the end, we will handle some of the questions that was typed in on the chat. Hope that is okay with everyone. So welcome to those who have just joined, and you are welcome to type your questions in the chat functionality so that we can answer it afterwards. Okay, so the first question is, why did you choose to become an actuary?
Thanks, Stefan. I have to be dead honest here. I got a bursary from Sanlam, which you would know well, to go and study accountancy. I grew up in Polokwane in the Limpopo province, and I didn't even know what it actually was when finishing matric. And in the process of applying for the bursary, and Sanlam's HR person who looked after the bursary scheme said, but why don't I go and study actuarial science, because the actuaries got bigger bonuses than the accountants in Sanlam. I must say, hopefully it wasn't only that. I then did a bit of research on studying actuarial science. I like math and statistics and so on, and realized that that would be a career which probably suited me slightly better than accountancy. And you know, that's how I ended up studying actuarial science at Tux.
The accounting was also appealing to me, but luckily I chose to study actuarial science.
Good choice.
Which field are you currently working in?
So I worked in the insurance industry virtually straight out of varsity. I was actually a lecturer at Tux, believe it or not. Straight after varsity, I got a job at the insurance company. I only worked there for 3 months, and then joined or then met my co-founders of Outsurance, and we started a new business, and worked there for many years. I think 21 or 22 years. I was really part of the furniture, and then I decided it's time for a change. It's also time for some very good people and so on at Outsurance for a fresh pair of legs, so somebody else to take over the reins. And having did that, I invested and sat on a board of a small company called RAIN, which is a telecommunications business, a mobile data operator. And I thought that would be a really interesting business to get involved in a bit more full time, and I thought I could make a difference there. And so in 2018, I joined RAIN, which has been a very interesting experience for an actuary, given that we trained to work in the financial services world for insurers or for banks or for asset managers or for medical aids or whatever. And you don't necessarily find that many actuaries in telcos. It's mostly engineers that rule the roost there. But it's been a fascinating experience, just understanding technically how the thing works. And the one thing I can tell you, in any business, if you're good with data, at RAIN at this point, we're already employing 10, 11 data scientists, quite a number of them are actuaries. And like, you know, you can add value in any area of business if you can help the business to make better decisions using the data at your disposal. So, you know, I think actuaries can add value in many industries.
Is the actuarial profession can be applied almost anywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think the actuarial profession gives you a unique blend between statistical and mathematical skills and then finance, and bringing those together can help a lot. But I must tell you, I think going forward in future, the statistical skills are probably going to be more valuable than some of the other skills. I think you know, the times where finance people rules the roost is changing. I think the scientists and the engineers and the data scientists and the statisticians and so on in the new world of AI and fast moving technology, that's going to be a really valuable skill to have.
And so just a few personal questions so that we can get to know you better. What is your favorite book?
My favorite book, I suppose, the favorite business book, which I've read, is Good to Great by Jim Collins. I must tell you, I've never met, not to give a long speech, but I've never met a successful person that doesn't read a lot. So I would encourage all of you to read a lot and to read widely. So not only your statistics handbook, but also novels and business books and books about psychology or whatever the case might be. So the best business book I've read is, or which I enjoy the most, is Good to Great by Jim Collins. Really gives good principles on how to run a business and make a business successful over the long term. But I probably read sort of one business book a week at least, you know, to make sure that you stay on top of things. Best fiction book I've read, or the one I enjoyed most, was Fees van die Ongenooides from PG Du Plessis, Afrikaans book. So that was nice and enjoyable. But yeah, I read lots. So those two stand out. There's many.
I'll definitely go read that business book.
Absolutely, there's a follow Built to Last, so you can read both of them. Very good.
Thank you. So, what is your favorite movie?
That's a wide range, from The Godfathers to watching all 7 or 9 or wherever that it's now Star Wars movies with my boys. Shawshank Redemption is a great favorite. Yeah, no, it's nice relaxing on a Sunday evening and watching a couple of movies.
I'm sure that's good suggestions for this the self-isolation time.
Yeah.
What is your favorite song?
My favorite song, goodness, I would say my favorite band's U2. So coming out of that era. But I love a wide range of music, but I've had to go and pick a U2 song, probably Where the Streets Have No Name, or With or Without You, or something like that.
Nice. And what is your favorite food?
My favorite food? Look, once again, I believe you should experiment and eat all sorts of stuff. You know, there's you could go to very fancy restaurants, and I like doing that and eating interesting things. But then again, you know, something simple like peri chicken, Portuguese peri chicken, and chips is hard to beat. So if I had to choose one meal, that would probably be it.
Sounds very nice. Okay, so what other careers did you consider, and why did you choose to become an? Well, you already answered. Why did you choose to become an actuary? But you also said you considered becoming an accountant. Was that the only career option?
Yeah, and I also thought of engineering. My dad was a mechanical engineer, so I suppose any of the professions that had a lot to do with math and numbers suited me. I was good at math. Um, But I suppose, most important thing is you must do something that you're really interested in and passionate about, and find something that you are passionate about. Now, sometimes it is a bit difficult to be very passionate about your chosen area of study. So there might be this part of algebra you don't like, or or life insurance studies or whatever might not be that interesting. So what I would say to you is to realize that if you do study something like actuarial science, you actually get a great toolbox. See yourself as a handyman, and you've got a toolbox, and you've got some really good tools in there. You not only just have a hammer, you have some wrenches and some screwdrivers and some really great tools. And with those tools, you can add a lot of value to a business, or you can go into academia, or whatever you want to do. So it's very important then to go and find something which you're really passionate about, and then use your tool sets to to make a difference. Either build a great product which clients will want to buy, or you solve a big problem, or you make a business more sustainable and profitable. Even if there's not enormous passion on your side for the specific thing you're studying, once you finish your study, see that as a tool set which you can use, and then go and find something that you're really passionate about, and you can use that tool set in that area to build a good career in life.
So even if you're not so interested in what you're studying, you can still use it in your passion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, think about it. I think it's extremely difficult. I think you are very lucky and fortunate if you're 18 years old, or even if you're 20, 21, to know exactly what your passions are and what you want to do. Don't be too worried about that. You are studying something which is going to be valuable in future. You can go and work for bank, like I said, and even go and work for a telco like I have, or I've seen actuaries pop up all over the show these days. So once you finish studying, go and think about what you're really passionate about, and then you've got like I said, a very, very good background to add real value in whatever endeavor you're going to be busy with.
That's good to know. How would you describe the profession to a person who has never heard of it?
Yeah, that's a good one. And I suppose, actuaries use math and statistics to solve financial problems, particularly longer term financial problems. I think that's probably the theoretical definition or so of an actuary. But I would just say, an actuary is somebody who's got a good grasp of math and statistics. And if you have good math and statistics, and you can help a business that has data to predict the future better than its competitors. If you can predict the future, or make informed decisions about the future based on statistics and the past, you can gain a bit of an advantage over the competition, and build a good business. So, if actuaries can help in that process. But having said that, people who are really successful are all typically innovative. All right. So it's a bit of a cliche to say you must think outside of the box, but if you can use your toolbox and you can solve problems in a unique and innovative way, typically you can add a lot of value. Look at Elon Musk. probably, I mean, yeah, also the typical American example of starting the business in your garage and never finishing your studies. But he certainly used science and math, you know, to solve huge problems and you know, built amazing businesses.
So you should sort of be an entrepreneur with your skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, look, not everybody, you know, it will likely be entrepreneurial. So I think that's a great thing about studying an actuary. You don't all have to be entrepreneur, but certainly if you are entrepreneurial and enterprising, you know, you can add a real value to the economy and to the country and so forth. You know, businesses create jobs. That's the biggest problem our country faces, is a lack of employment. So if you're entrepreneurial, absolutely. Other comment I would like to make about being an entrepreneur doesn't mean you have to start the business in your mom's garage, right? So you can go and study, you can go and work for a big place. Typically in large businesses, go and choose a business which has an entrepreneurial culture. I think Outsurance, where I was had that, the First Rand Group, where our business was started from, had that. Discovery is a good example, also started out of the First Rand stable. So you can also be an intrapreneur. So somebody who works for a big business but has an entrepreneurial flair to start new things and not just to improve existing things. So yes, absolutely, having an entrepreneurial spirit will certainly serve you well, particularly obviously if you want to enter the business world. And you have to take risk. Just remember, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to take some risk. Now, think about it. You're actually very fortunate if you've passed a difficult qualification like becoming an actuary, because it opens doors for you. It's going to be far more difficult to get those doors open without any qualification, especially in these days. But opening the door is one thing, then actually making something of that opportunity is another. So if you get a job at an entrepreneurial place, you'll meet other people, you'll build up your skill set, you'll see opportunities. And I mean, the average, it's always very interesting, the average age of somebody starting a new business is actually in their 50s. And it's also between 50 and 55 where if people start a new business, got the biggest chance of succeeding. So that's not to say, I'm saying isn't you have to work for a place until you're 50 and then start a new business. Absolutely not. I remember well, I mean, I got a job at a large insurance company, and then I asked my father and I asked my professor at Takkies, what should I do? Should I go and start this new insurance business, or should I stay with the existing place? Both of them told me much better stay at the existing place, get some experience, and you know, maybe go and start something new later. Unfortunately, I didn't listen to them. It was probably one of the best decisions I've made in my working career. But I think, you know, it was also very lucky. So but say if a good opportunity comes along, you're studying something which is valuable, go and get a job at a good place, and then these opportunities will come by. And maybe it comes by quickly. I was fortunate that mine did. Maybe it'll take a couple of years.
So that decision was a bit of risk, but as actuaries, we know quite a lot about risk, and it paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is. I mean, it is very tough starting a new business, and there's a good chance of things not going well. But also, I remember that, I mean, 9 out of 10 businesses fail. But you know, if you don't try, you're never going to know. And given that you've got a good education and a valuable skill, if it doesn't work, you can always go back and get a job somewhere else. You know, so you know, it's an exciting time and exciting prospects for you all.
What do you think are the myths or misconceptions about actuaries?
Yeah, look, I mean, I suppose seeing as a bunch of nerds which just needs to sit in the back room and, you know, it's every now and again, everybody just shoves a pizza below the door and you sit behind a big the computer screen and you're doing coding and statistical analysis. But I think, you know, that's fine. But then again, I mean, many actuaries have become leaders in the business field, and I suppose that's another skill which, you know, you must be careful not just to develop your ability to do differential equations, but also you know, your ability to work in a team, to motivate people, to get people to have a common objective and be passionate about something and trying to solve a good problem. So yeah, I mean, I actually think actuaries are an interesting bunch, but you know, I suppose you shouldn't ask me. You're going to ask somebody else. Yeah.
So interacting with people is still part of the job.
Yes, it's actually very funny now that we're all working from home. So I mean, I'm sitting here and I share an office with my wife and the kids every now and again walk in, and they've come to the conclusion all I do is talk to people. You know, they don't because I don't do maybe many statistical analysis that much these days. So, you know, certainly if you get into a management role and so on, it is critically important to, you know, build a good team spirit, create a good culture at the business. Creative is the most important thing if you apply for not if you apply for a job. When you, I mean, if you're your first job, I suppose don't be too picky, just get one. But once you become established, yeah, it's very important to go and pick a place that you work for where you fit inside of the culture, because it's very, very difficult for you to change a culture. It's almost impossible. It's even difficult for the CEO to change an existing culture of a business. I actually think it makes far more sense to find some place where you can fit into the culture, because that's very important. If you're not going to fit in the culture of the business and you don't like the people you work with, you're never going to be happy in your job.
This question, I think, partly has been answered, but what, in your opinion, are the key traits or abilities every actuary should have?
Well, look, the key traits and abilities is obviously, you know, if you've passed the exams, you can obviously do the technical stuff. So let's ignore that. So what other key traits and abilities would it take from you to be successful one day, I suppose? Now, the first thing you need to realize is the fact that you're an actuary doesn't guarantee success. I've actually seen that a lot with extremely clever actuaries, and they almost become entitled. So listen, I'm an actuary, I'm very clever. Very few people can pass this thing. So, you know, you need to pay me a huge salary, and you know, if you suddenly become very important, and that's a critical mistake. The only thing that your studies gave you is what I've said earlier, is the set of tools. Now it's up to you to make a difference on how you use those tools. So I think key traits there would be to be a good communicator. Typically, actuaries aren't good at communicating stuff because it's sort of complex math you need to do. And you must be, if you're busy with a product, ideally you should think about how do you explain this to your granny in 2 or 3 minutes. So become a good communicator. Try and be innovative. Try and use and solve difficult problems in innovative ways. You know, and then the other traits, they're pretty generic. If you work hard and if you're honest and you find something you're passionate about, combined with your very good skill set, and just you know, realizing that you need to add value and not just be important because you're an actuary, I think that would be a good recipe for success.
That's interesting to know. So attitude is key, and we should obviously learn to communicate.
Absolutely.
Now a few questions about your student life. What was the favorite and least favorite part about your student life or studies?
Oh, I really enjoyed student life. Look, I mean, unless things have changed, I found it was actually difficult. You had to study, so we all studied hard. But it's good to study hard and to play hard within boundaries, I suppose. So I was at Res for 2 years, and then 2 years in a commune, and I must say I really enjoyed it. I've never liked to get up early in the morning, but I suppose even if you maybe stay awake a bit late at night, partying with your friends, getting up for that class and the next morning was tough. But I must say I was a bit of a nerd there. Did get up in the morning, did go to classes, didn't bank much, and it's a really good time. You must enjoy it. It's actually, for me, I feel for some of the students and so on now, particularly during lockdown. It's a really great time of one's life, and you must enjoy it to the full.
Which do you think is better, doing honors or working and studying after third year?
Yeah, I think that depends on your circumstances. If I went and did the honors. I did work at the varsity then as a junior lecturer, so that helped with that. That doesn't really count as work. I mean, not too much trouble, especially back then. So if you are fortunate enough to be able to study full time, I'd get the studies behind me, and then, because I also sort of found that once you if you're very focused on your studies, yes, it's tough to work then and to balance. However, if reality turns out to be different, I mean, I see there's a question on the group chat of how long I took to qualify. So maybe there's not quite studying in the honors time, but after honors, got a job, and then immediately got started Outsurance, and then I actually had two subjects left, pensions and life. So I got life, and I actually still today, I actually don't think I have it anymore, but I have 4 sets of unopened pension fund notes. So then I would enter for the institute exams. I'd get the notes, and I didn't even open them, because at the time in starting the business, yes, that was you go all consumed about it. And then my wife fell pregnant, so I said, "Ish, maybe I was now actually at some point in time actually go pitch for the exam and finish it." So 2 months before my first son came, I qualified. So it took me about 9 years. So I didn't rush through it, but so it is very tough to work and study together. But it's worthwhile getting it behind you. Right? So if you can do it full time, I think that's great.
That is very good to know. So how can we prepare ourselves to be able to work after study? So extra courses or things you can do?
Look, 2 simple practical things I do if I were you. In our appointment process, coding skills we think is incredibly important. I tell you, we'll rather take somebody who's a really good coder with slightly lower marks than somebody who aced all the other subjects. So good coding skills is going to be important. And the way you prepare yourself, I think, is to read widely. I think we have too many super specialists in the world today, and you become an absolute expert on such a small thing that you don't see the bigger picture anymore. Now, you do have to be an expert at something. I mean, you can't, and that's why you're studying actuarial science, and you actually get a very specific skill set. But it is, if you don't know what's happening in politics in the country, if you don't understand what are the big economic trends, one of the great questions I see here you've asked, are computers going to replace actuaries one day. And I suppose maybe the more general question is AI and AI techniques going to replace a large number of jobs? And the answer is absolutely yes. I also think it will create new jobs. And I actually think statisticians and mathematicians and actuaries are very well placed to be part of that. So I don't think computers or AI is going to replace you, but I think it's going to be an enormously powerful tool which you have and must understand, which you can use to solve problems. I think we're quite a way away where you get what they call a general AI. I think we've got specific AI at this point in time where you can program an algorithm to do a very specific thing. But for an algorithm to be generally intelligent, I think there's a few years to go and so on. I maybe in our lifetimes, maybe not. Who knows? Those things are exponential, so it's difficult to project it. But you know, you're also not going to do much about it. So I think just read widely, understand what happens in the world, understand politics, economics, the big social issues of the day. All of those things are going to prepare you for the work environment as much as getting you know, a distinction for your statistics exam.
Thank you. So it's more than just getting good marks.
Absolutely. But it's better to get good marks than poor marks.
That's very true. Do you have advice on how students can become more aware of what they are studying and how it applies to the real world in university? Yeah, you have touched on that just now. Also.
Yeah, and I'll just you must read widely. Read the news. Read The Economist magazine. Read Time magazine. Popular Science. Whatever the case might be. I think having a very good general knowledge and trying to understand how the world works. I understand what's the big corporate happenings in the country currently. I'll share why is the oil price so low now, or whatever the case might be. I think if you understand, if you have a good understanding of business and the world around you, you'll do get a job much easier.
So you should know a lot about the world, preferably.
Absolutely.
How do you balance your job studying for exams and the personal time? Especially, you mentioned you were very tight starting the new business when you were doing your final exams.
Mm-hmm. My partner in crime at Outsurance, who started the business with me, had a great saying. He says, there's no such thing as balance. It's only juggling. So, you know, how do you juggle all of this? Look, you must just prioritize and try and be as efficient as you can. But all, you know, having outside interests and hobbies and doing stuff, I think is critical. It makes you a much more rounded person. And so on. So, look, I do think there's phases. So when you start a new business and you're focused on it, because it's so difficult to get a new business off the ground, it's almost all consuming. So maybe family life and your hobbies and so on takes a bit of a back seat there. However, once a business becomes more established, it becomes larger. I'm a big fan of having a balanced life, because you know, to me, it's not about how successful you are and how your bank balance looks like. It's about how happy you are. And do you have meaningful relationships with your family and your kids and your co-workers and so on? And, you know, are you enjoying life? So, you know, finding that balance, I think, is critically important. But it's tough, yes, especially in the beginning. And if you add the studies into that, it causes an enormous amount of stress. But you know, that's when the going gets tough, the tough get going. That's, I suppose, the only advice I can give you. It's not easy. Not easy.
Good advice. How did you decide what company and field you wanted to work in after studies, especially?
Yeah, so I think that can be quite a stressful thing. And because whether you like it or not, I think luck has got a lot to do with it. So I worked at the varsity. I helped the head of the department, the professor, with some private work he did. And we did some work for a short-term insurance business. Actually, it was a car warranty business. I also like cars, so thought, yes, car insurance is seems to be a cool thing to get involved in. It was obviously very exciting, just starting a new business. How exactly to plan that, I actually don't know. So it's almost just my previous advice: study hard, get good marks, know a lot about the world, try and be innovative, learn how to communicate and work with people. And hopefully, maybe if you're really lucky, you might have a choice of 2 or 3 companies you can go and work for. Maybe not. If you only have one, hey, then that's the choice. Then you go there. But I believe you me, with your skill set and with hard work and some of the other principles I've said, you will get on in life and you'll get other opportunities to go and work at other places. Maybe you say, okay, I'm working here, it's all right, but I don't really quite fit, or I'm not that stimulated, or whatever the case might be. Other opportunities will come along. So I wouldn't obviously recommend you to jump jobs every 6 months. That also doesn't make sense. But I tell you what, don't stay at a place where you're not really happy. You might have to hang around there for a year or 2 because just economic realities and so on dictate that. But if you're not really happy at the place, go and look for other opportunities, or and start your own business.
Would you say someone that is an actuary would find jobs quite quickly if they don't like their job or want to switch jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the South African economy is taking a huge amount of strain, and so it's not that easy. And unfortunately, I think a lot of our very good skills emigrate. But having said that, it is one of the areas where it's going to be easier to find a job than many other professions. It's also and I think actuaries have been fortunate in that the scope of jobs have expanded. Whereas previously you had to go work for a life insurer, or you had to go and work for actuarial consultancy doing defined benefit pension fund calculation. Today, you can go and work at almost any large corporate, any business, from a manufacturing business, a telco business, any business where you can use your skills to help them make better decisions based on the data they have, and actually help them collecting that data and storing it properly and so on. So there's many areas in which you can go and work.
That's good to know. What did you find challenging when you first became an actuary?
I suppose because I followed a bit more of a non-traditional route. Look, I suppose the one thing which is challenging always is people tell you that the theory and the practice is quite different. And I think that's a lazy argument. I think businesses who say that it doesn't work like this in practice, it's just because they're poor at implementing stuff. I tell you what, at Outsurance, I took our short-term insurance actuarial exam studies, and it says very clearly there how you should write premiums, how you should run the business, and that's exactly how we did it, by the book, according to the theory. The theory actually works. It's just if you poorly implement it, they'll always give you all sorts of reasons why you can't scientifically calculate premiums, or whatever the case might be. But that's typically because the companies have poor data. They wrote poor IT systems and so on. So I think sometimes if you're an actuary and you get into a business, it might be quite scary and debilitating almost, in that you now have to analyze data and make predictions, but the source is so poor you can't. So what do you do there? But that's where, if you're a really, if you could think about how you must actually say, okay, but let's go and fix the source. Go and understand that business process. You sit with a database in front of you, a big Excel spreadsheet or SQL database or whatever the case might be. And do you actually understand how those numbers get into this database? Where does it come from? And sometimes if you follow that whole process, the actuarial control cycle there, I think is a fantastic, just conceptual way of thinking about it. That's what we also did at Outsurance. Not only did we use actuaries to go and do analysis on a database, you know, we expected the actuaries to say, okay, there's a problem in this area of the business. Go and find out. Go and work with a lot of people. How do we fix it? What systems do we put in place? What data analysis do we do? What reports do we have a look at? Did our changes actually improve the business? And you go back and it's a feedback loop of continuous improvement. So I'm not sure if I really answered that question, but that I suppose it could be challenging.
Yes, but it was very informative. I think so. Understanding your data and knowing how it enters the system and making sure it enters the system correctly is very important. I think before I move on to my next questions, I just want to touch on some questions that people asked in the group chat. So what is your opinion on individuals going into the actuarial world for money? Or because of a love for math?
No, look, I think there's various reasons, and I'm not always sure if you're 18 years old that you know exactly what those reasons are. Now, let me tell you, I think the capitalist system is a good system and it generally works. I think it's better to have money than not to have money. But if money is the sole purpose of what you are doing and are busy with, you're probably going to crash somewhere and probably end up unhappy, even if you end up with lots of lots of money. So you know, you must do what you like, and if you make some good money as part of that, that's fantastic. And if the money bothers you, give it all away, or you know. So don't let money ever become your boss, but if you are financially successful, it is liberating because it allows you to travel, it allows you to look after your family, it allows you to be involved in charity work, which might be very satisfying for you. So that's my view on money. Whether it's the love of math, I think that's a really great thing about actuarial science. So our head of data analytics is a fantastic person. And so when he told me straight, listen, I don't want to manage too many people. I'd like to have 10 really clever people, and I actually want to sit and do lots of actuarial work. And so a very good example of somebody who's really in it for the love of the math and solving the problems and so on. And great companies then create an environment for people to do that. So it's a really great study area, actuarial science. If you want to do it simply for the academic side or for the love of math, you can do that. You'll find a place in some good companies. You'll find maybe a place in some at the university or whatever the case might be. Or if you want to be more entrepreneurial and start a business and have a bigger bank balance, that's also an option.
That's interesting that he also wanted to join in on the actuarial calculations. So it still stays interesting, the calculations.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you manage people properly, I mean, well, I don't need lots of management. So I mean, our chief actuary just finished his master's at Georgia Tech in data science, and adds enormous value to our business. What's interesting in the telco space, maybe compared to finance, just the amount of data. We pump 1 billion rows a day into our Amazon data lake. So you know, and that all our reporting is literally only a few minutes from real time, even though you sit with billions of rows. So understanding how these big data sets work and the tech behind it to be able to do it, I don't profess to have a clue. It was never part of the studies and so on. But yeah, it adds huge value to a business. So you can be very technical and add lots of value to a business without having to sit and talk nonsense all day like I do. Or if you think more about strategy in business and how to do things better and figure and operate and be a bit more entrepreneurial, right, you must decide what works for you and what you're passionate about.
Wow, that is impressive. The amount of data and the lines you're working with. I think let's move on to some COVID questions, because this is a real situation in the world, affecting us every day. How has the COVID-19 pandemic affected the work that you do, both type and amount?
Yeah, no, so yes, the pandemic, for sort of me personally and our business now, if you think about it, we connect people to the internet. That is our business. All right. So all our people have very good internet connections, get data for free. And so for us, the remote working thing was actually quite easy. And we're a really modern business, and a lot of our people operated in that way in any event. So I suppose the Iran was fortunate because people had good connectivity, can work from home. You can only buy our product online, and we were essential service, so we could sell through the lockdown period, and people really needed our product. So, you know, that's a very good example of being lucky. If you're successful in life, don't be too windgat because you think you're clever. It's many times it's just simply because it's good fortune. Whereas if you were in the travel industry or so, you might have I think a very good business I think of as Travel Start. They're very clever people, and they've really done exceptionally well and became actually successfully internationally. And now you get this thing and it just clucks you from a dizzying height. You know, you're going to be very difficult to survive it almost. So if you're in the airlines business and so on, so sometimes you're fortunate. But I think the COVID pandemic is a good example of they should have had more actuaries helping to build the models than just the epidemiologists, because epidemiologists' views are too narrow. So I mean, you actually had these Panda guys who I thought built a very interesting model for South Africa, and it's mostly with a couple of actuaries and so on. But you need a multidisciplinary thing, because clearly many of these models that were built were wrong and overly pessimistic almost, and the economic devastation all of these lockdowns have caused, I think, far outweighs the benefits of the so-called flattening of the curve.
Okay, so in any model
I'm a bit. I'll be careful what I say there. You don't need to misinterpret it, because the whole of RAN still works from home. I think it's a prudent thing to do because we can, but I do not think the economic consequences, and you have economic consequences which translates into real social consequences, and you might actually have a net loss of life years due to these lockdowns compared to you know, maybe just letting the virus spread.
Yes, I understand. So in any model you build, you should take into consideration all the factors that there are.
People who add real value in business don't just think of the first and second order effects, but the third or the fourth. That's, you know, you must think deeply about problems. So, and if you build a model, just don't, I mean, it depends on for what purpose and so on. So don't also go and overcomplicate the thing, and understand all models are wrong. Every single model is always wrong. But as long as it's right more often and you know, points it in the right direction, it can add a lot of value. But think of the second and the third and the fourth order effects is an important skill to have.
So one of the questions are, what are your thoughts about the current situation and its impact on our well-being as well as the economy? But you have answered that already.
Yeah, no, it is tough times coming, very tough
Mm.
times. If you have a 5-6% economic contraction, and look, if I would encourage you, if there was a big problem, I would work on and so on. It's just how do we create employment in this country? Now, look, I mean, I suppose that's more of a political problem to solve. So maybe the answers aren't that difficult, but having the political will to actually implement it. But we're causing more unemployment. And we already sit with 35-40% of our people that don't have work. And that's the reason why I have inequalities. No other reason. It's because people don't have work. That's why we're the most unequal society. It's because we're also the country with the highest unemployment rate.
Wow.
And it's absolutely correlated, because if you don't have a job, you don't have an income. And therefore, you sit with a huge proportion of our population who simply don't have jobs. Massive problem. And this lockdown is not going to help with that. But we'll be okay. If in the end, everything will be okay. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
That's a good quote and something to think of each day. What does the current financial crisis mean for the industry, the actuarial industry, and then also the models actuaries built in the insurance industry? How will it be changed due to the pandemic?
Yeah, no. So there are. I think it's going to be a really good example where actuarial skills are enormously valuable, because the assumptions have changed, and some of the models need to be fundamentally adjusted for much lower interest rates. Are we going to see inflation because governments of the world are printing money? How do you adjust for claims? A really good example. Now, you're an actuary. So, and you have a car insurance business. Now, suddenly because of lockdown, everybody stops driving. So what do? Well, first option is you just still collect premiums and make lots of money. Okay. Or do you give the money back to clients? Or you sit with a problem that all of this, most of the money for car insurance goes to panel beaters to replace, to repair and fix cars. Now suddenly these guys have nothing to do. They have people working for them, and they go bankrupt because of the lockdown. Or do you say, okay, I will take some of the money, give some of it to clients, and also still pay the panel beaters, even though they don't, they're not repairing any cars. So I understand. So now you obviously need to go and change your actuarial models on how you would run the business, but it's not a simple answer. And really well thought through data and modeling, as well as good common sense. Actuaries can add a lot of value in these complex times.
That is nice to know that our skills are actually more required in these times.
Absolutely.
And with working from office, or from the office and from the home, where do you think an actuary will perform best? Working online from the home, or going into an office environment?
I think that depends on your own personal circumstances. Typically, I think actuaries will do better at home, because you do need to concentrate, especially if you're building models, looking at big data sets. But I think it's going to be a balance. I think it depends on some people. Some people will go back to work for 5 days a week, or some will go back once a week. But I do think that the pandemic may have caused a bit of a structural shift, in that more people will work from home, because you can be a lot more productive. Now, sure, there are some instances where you really would want a nice group and you want to strategize and talk and blah, 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 blah. But mostly you don't have to waste time on travel. So there's a big time saving. You're very flexible. So now suddenly it actually makes sense. Listen, I actually quickly want to go to the gym, or want to go for a run, but maybe the time I've got to open is between 1 and 3 in the afternoon, and then I can do it. So I'm a big fan of remote working, and I think we're going to see more of it. I think it's going to return back to normal, but there's going to be massive shifts because of this, and it'll be interesting to see how things pan out. You never know.
Indeed. So, actuaries while employed, do they find time to travel or socialize, or is it limited?
No, no, of course, of course. No, look, that depends on yourself. So, like I said, maybe in the beginning of your career, it's more work than play, but later on, and it is really one of the great things because you earn a decent living and so on that you can travel and do stuff. And I think that's actually very good for you. Not just to enjoy and make you a more rounded person, and can also help with understanding the business environment or the environment you operate into to add a bit more value. So no, it's not just work. At least there's some fun as well.
Do actuaries make good directors of companies and business leaders? And what is your
Yeah,
vision
look,
for Rain?
I think so. I think generally so, but I think somebody who cares about the people, the country, the environment, and somebody who's honest and so on is typically, because I mean the guy who ran Steinhoff was an accountant, so yeah. So I don't think it really has to do with the profession, but yes, being honourable and caring about what you do. But certainly your actuarial skills will make you a good director, because the primary job of a director of a company is to make sure that the company doesn't take undue risk. Now, you shouldn't take no risk, because then you're also not going to get nowhere. But helping a business to navigate risk, I think, is a key part of a director, and being an actuary is a very good training for that. Vision for Rain.
Can I maybe just
Sorry.
add to that vision of Rain, vision for Rain? What was the challenges coming into Rain from where you were into the telecommunications?
Personally, a very big challenge for me, because I'm not a telco expert. And believe me, we have lots of three-letter acronyms in the actuarial world. It pales in comparison to the telco and technical and engineering world. So not being an expert on how the company works, it technically works, and so on, I put you at a big disadvantage. But I decided from the start, I'm going to say, if I don't know, so sorry, I don't understand, can you please explain that to me again? Because believe me, if you sit in a meeting and you don't know what's going on, I bet you 10 times there's somebody next to you who also don't understand. So if you don't understand, ask a question. It doesn't matter if you look stupid, because you're only going to be stupid for a short period of time then. But always ask questions. And maybe it's a bit easier if you're the CEO to do that, and if compared to when you're junior. But you must do that. So it was challenging for me. But my job there as the CEO is not to figure out how the best way to configure our 5G network. I don't have the foggiest idea, but it is my job to make sure that we have really skilled people who technically know what they're doing, who are passionate about what Rain wants to achieve, and who work well together. So that's my job, to get that team to gel. Unfortunately, with some good financial skills, that also helps, because it is a business that requires lots of capital and so on. So you need to be clever on how you do that. So at least from that point of view, I could give some good advice to the engineers as well.
So you also could tell the engineers what to do.
Yeah, on very few occasions.
Very few occasions.
Very few occasions.
I see we have past 11 o'clock, so the time is, we are over time, but I'll just squeeze in a last two questions or so. Do you have any advice for students during this time, and advice or motivation for any aspiring actuaries?
Not anything additional to what I've said. I think it is obviously a tough time. Make sure that you look after your normal health and your mental health. Go exercise. Don't just sit inside and stare at screens all day. Continue to study hard. Try and be social. At least you guys, you're young, and you know how to interact using the various internet platforms and so on. But it is a tough time. Not everybody has comfortable surroundings and so on to live in, and the finances can also be tough in this time. But so no word of advice. Rather just want to wish you good luck, and I hope you come through this, and the country comes through this, and you're successful in your studies, and that our economy will grow again, so that there's lots of jobs, not only for actuaries but for most people.
And an interesting question I just saw is being an actuary a stressful job?
I think it depends. Unfortunately, if you're the boss of the place, it is a bit stressful, because typically the problems come up to you. But I actually think you must think carefully about stress and so on. So I might be the CEO of a business like Outsurance. I think a call center operator in Outsurance who works very hard, but there's lots of family members to look after, or maybe somebody's ill or whatever, it takes more stress than I typically have. So everybody, any job really is stressful. And if you have responsibilities in a family to look after, and you have to look at your finances and so on, so everything is stressful. To think you're not going to have stress-free life, that's, I think, unrealistic. I think very few people that will happen. So one of the best things you can do in your life is to accept that life is difficult and stressful. Right. So that's a fact. You can't change it. So how do you handle the stress and so on? And that's, everybody must decide for themselves. But having a good, healthy, balanced life, I suppose, is the best way to handle the stress. But yes, if you need to make important decisions, and remember, a lot of your decisions has big implications. So with that does come stress, and so you have to be accurate. Can't make mistakes, otherwise the company can lose lots of money and people can lose their jobs. So certainly not a stress-free job, but not too bad.
I think you can say, if you have studied actuarial sciences, you have some experience in dealing with stress.
No, those exam stress still is the worst. Good stuff.
And what is the best joke you have heard about an actuary?
Yeah, there's lots of actuary jokes. But you get three types of actuaries: those who can count and those who can't.
Those who can't.
Yeah, I don't have a really unique actuary joke. But certainly the other professions seem to like to make fun of us.
Fun of us. I think maybe linking to your option of maybe becoming an accountant. An accountant is someone who wanted to become an actuary, but it didn't have the personality for it. And
yeah, I've heard that one.
Yeah. So any last thoughts from your side?
No, thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope it goes well with your studies. You can rest assured Tuks is still a world-class university. You're studying a great area. I hope you're going to study hard and be successful, get good jobs, start great businesses, become good academics, and add real value to society, and make South Africa a better place. I mean, we're all passionate about this country, and I hope we can, if we all do our best to make a difference, it'll be a good place for you one day, and for our kids and so on. So all the best. I just wish you well.
You are also a very able cyclist. Are you planning to do some cycling today, or what are you planning to do?
Actually, the plan today is that's why I'm looking rather funny here with my cap and stuff on. The family is waiting. We're going to climb the mountain outside of our home here. So no cycling today, but most other days I do get a bit of time to go out with the mountain bike. It's really fun.
It's nice to get out. So thanks to everyone that tuned in, and thank you very much, Mr. Roos, or I can call you probably Willem. It was really a privilege to listen to you today. We hope you will enjoy the remainder of your youth day and climbing the mountains. And we look forward to see what you and the team at Rain will achieve in giving us faster connectivity.
Absolutely. No, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Stefan, and the rest of you also have a good day.
Goodbye, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Cheers.